Now there's a man who's driving hard to make some history. He's one of the most interesting and complex men ever to get behind the wheel of a Winston Cup car. Wisconsin native and owner of the Hooters Ford, Alan Kulwicki. Coming from the American Speed Association, 1985 marked the first year that Alan Kulwicki drove Winston Cup. In 5 starts, his best finish was 13th. The next season, he competed in 23 events and won Rookie of the Year honors. Since then, he's progressed steadily through the standings, making his mark with consistently strong qualifying efforts. He's overcome adversity throughout his life and career. Let's meet him. Just how did you get started in the racing business?
Well, I was always brought up around racing. My dad built race car engines, and I was just always around race cars. And I started racing go-karts when I was like 13 or 14, and started racing stock cars when I was 18, and did it as a hobby all through college. And after getting my degree in mechanical engineering, working 2 years as an engineer, having done all that, I still felt that what I really wanted to do was race, and so I left the engineering field and went racing professionally, and been doing it ever since.
What college did you go to?
University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Graduated from there and went to work for a company called Applied Power, working on the barrel wheel alignment equipment. And first thing I did when I went to work for them was adapt their equipment into a system that they used on the Indy cars at the Bear Garage and Gasoline Alley. And I did that. It was pretty neat for 6 months, and then I got on to regular production stuff. And the next 6 months were okay, and then, you know, another 6 months I knew that racing was really what I wanted to do professionally, that I just got a greater sense of accomplishment or more satisfaction out of that than I did. I was just not a behind-the-desk type person, I guess.
When you first started, were you successful in racing?
I was never a dominant driver at any level, really, I think. I think that once I became good at a certain level, if I could win, I'd try to move on to the next level instead of staying there for 3 or 4 or 5 years and trying to be dominant or win the most races. If I was proficient, if I could win there, then I set my sights on the next level.
When in your racing career did you figure out that NASCAR Winston Cup is where you wanted to be?
Probably at one time USAC and NASCAR were sort of on a par back in, actually when my dad was involved in it, late 60s or early 70s. And you know, through good promotion and management, NASCAR grew into what it is today, and USAC just sort of faded out, especially the stock car division. And so, you know, probably by the late 70s, you could sort of see that NASCAR racing was a place to be, and that had been my goal for at least 5 to 7 years before I ever got down south. And I knew I always wanted to, you know, like a lot of people thought I always could, but the biggest question was, would I ever get the chance to?
Alan's chance came at the Daytona 500 in 1985. His Quincy's Thunderbird was on the track, but was passed by 2 cars in the final lap. He didn't make the show. After your rookie season, Quincy's quits as a sponsor. Did you ever think you'd see any light at the end of the tunnel?
I mean, I look back at that and I say, I don't know how I ever did that. If I had to do it over again, I don't know if I could. And I couldn't operate another year that way. I had to have a bigger budget to operate on to progress at all. And they were fighting some takeover bids and so forth, and had to actually cut back on their advertising. So they got out, and that's when Xerox Antifreeze came along.
Then after 4 years, Xerox went away.
Things changed in the antifreeze business. Market conditions changed, and you know, the price of antifreeze went way up and then way back down. And basically, they got out of racing. Actually, had to start the following year with no sponsor. And by, you know, the times I've made the biggest gains are the times I've taken the biggest risks in my career, and I had to take another big risk to keep the team going without a sponsor and keep the people here and keep them on the payroll without a sponsor. That was pretty tough to do.
Hooters has come along as a sponsor. Does that make all the trials and tribulations over the past 10 years worthwhile?
Having them as a sponsor and for the next 3 years has put our team in really good shape, and I think that, you know, having to sort of weather that storm of not having a sponsor going through that tough time, this has really made it worth it. It's the first time in my career I've ever had a multi-year sponsorship, and now I think we're a lot more solid and a lot more stable than a lot of teams are. You know, we don't have to worry about are we going to be able to buy good parts for the car, or are we going to have a sponsor next year? Are we going to be here next week or next month or next year?
With everything that you've been through, it's obvious that you have a mental toughness that not everyone has. Where did it come from?
Well, it's hard for me to say for sure, but there's things that happened early on in my life that probably contributed to that. And, you know, I think that my mom died when I was in 2nd grade, and my brother and I and my dad lived with my grandmother, and she helped raise us. And my grandmother died when I was in 7th grade. My brother died when I was in 8th grade, so I probably had to deal with a lot of adversity early on in life. And somehow or another, you find a way to keep going. And, you know, my dad was busy building race car engines and off-racing a lot like I am right now, so I had to learn how to do a lot of things for myself. And when it came time to go racing, he never did it for me. I'd always ask him a lot of questions, but, you know, he never got me a break or got me a sponsor or bought a car for me or ever spent any money on the cars, really. So just, you know, sometimes people get things just handed to them and they never have to work hard enough for it to appreciate it. Well, I think I have had to work hard for it, and having to deal with, I don't know, but I think having to deal with a lot of those tough things like that early on in my life probably had something to do with it.
Alan, there's a plaque over on your wall that says, "The pursuit of perfection is frustrating and a waste of time because nothing is ever perfect. The pursuit of excellence is commendable and worthwhile. Therefore, strive for excellence, not perfection." Did you say that?
I've read a lot of, like, self-improvement type books, positive attitude type books, that sort of thing. And, you know, maybe I've been a perfectionist in the past, or, you know, there's some of those tendencies to have to work that hard to get to this point. You've got to be a little bit of a workaholic or a little bit of a perfectionist to try to make it. And then eventually you realize, well, maybe that's not the best way to do it. And somewhere along the line, I probably did. I would get frustrated trying to make everything perfect, you know. And I think as time goes on, I'm better at accepting the things that aren't perfect, you know, but they're good enough to get the job done. And so that's sort of the way I look at things right now. If you try to make everything perfect, you'll just wear yourself out. You'll get frustrated. You'll get mad, on, because nothing is ever perfect. But you can make things close to perfect. You can make them excellent. And so strive for excellence, not perfection.